I want to welcome you to our first day of our masterclass. We are getting ready to kick off day one. And over the next few days, we're going to explore some amazing, delicious, guilt-free holiday recipes. And I also want to work on setting up strategies for success in 2025. I'm in the wrong year. So I don't know if you want to note what you're thinking of, or at least in your own mind, what you're thinking of for your own 2025, if you've actually started thinking that, or it's too early for that. But it would be interesting to look at over the next 5 days, getting some clarity on how you can break free from some of those common traps that we run into at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year with the stress-free holidays. So again, I want to welcome you here. I remember being stuck with learning, setting some big goals, and also setting some big goals for what I was going to do over the holidays, and really felt like I was just drained by the time I got to Christmas because it was just too much. And one year, I didn't even realize it, but I ate the whole candy wreath all by myself. I'm pretty sure. I don't think anybody else was eating the candy wreath, but I just was out of control that way and was too busy being busy and making sure everybody else was looked at. So I would just go by and take a candy and not even pay any attention, not be mindful to it. So I've really learned to make some changes there. And today we're also looking at our holiday treat. So we're going to start today with an appetizer or an hors d'oeuvre that you can make that is nutritious and delicious and easy to make. What you need to make it is really high speed or some kind of blender. High speed is always better because it blends faster. But this is a herb cheese log made out of cashews. And if you're allergic to cashews, you can substitute sunflower seeds or any other nuts for it. But sunflower seeds work really good in place of cashews if you've got a nut allergy. All right, we're going to get started making our herbed cashew cheese log. Now, I have a Vitamix, so I'm going to use my Vitamix here. And I want to just point out, I have two different vessels for my Vitamix. Let me bring them. I got this at Costco, a really good deal. Actually, my kids bought it for me for Christmas, so that was even better. And this is a Vitamix or a high-speed blender is really a great tool to have for when you want to eat more plant-based foods and just for smoothies and blending. They really does a good job. Now, the vessel that came with my unit was this one, and you'll see it has a pretty wide base. I ended up buying this one here that's the same size, but it's narrow and higher. And I like that for things like making cashew cheeses and things because we don't want to put too much water in. And I find with this one, I usually have to have about 2 cups of cashews, or will be double the recipe that you're going to get today for this particular recipe. And just because when you don't put enough in, it all splats to the outside, and you end up having to stop it every 5 seconds to scrape it down, and then you turn it on again, and 5 seconds later you're turning it off. So when I'm using this one, I usually make sure I have 2 cups of cashews, and then really it's a double recipe. And I did actually make my cashew cheese yesterday in this one, and I did the exact recipe. And I ended up, the other option is you add a little bit more water, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to use this one. And I also have a tamper with this, which is to make sure it's keep it going and moving it around. You should not put anything like a spatula in here. That's not a good idea. And once you put the lid on, you put the tamper in the middle with this, take this off, and that will help it to move it around and keep it going, because this is pretty thick. If you have enough liquid, you don't need to do any of this. But for this, we want to try and keep our liquid to a low amount. And so we're going to make sure we use the tamper. Okay. We are starting off. I have a cup of cashews that I have soaked, and I soaked it since this morning. I used warm water to do it. So it's been about 4 hours. You can soak it 4 to 6 hours is probably about the right amount. If you're in a hurry, you forgot to soak the cashews, I guess the pro tip is to use boiling hot water for about 10, 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. And what that does is what you're softening the cashews so that they'll blend easily and you don't have any graininess to your sauce or what you're making. So I've drained this. I'm going to put this in here. And I also want to point out, not only are you softening the cashews, but you are also getting rid of some enzyme inhibitors on them. And so you can see this is my soaking water that I used this morning. I kept it. And this cloudiness has the outside coating of the cashews on it. And cashews have, and all nuts have an enzyme inhibitor layer to protect it from other things like molding. And same with seeds. And you know, when you put seeds in the ground, the first step is that they need to, a lot of times you soak them, and that gets rid of this enzyme inhibitor layer. When we eat the enzyme inhibitor layer, like when we don't soak our nuts, what happens is those enzyme inhibitors are like an anti-nutrient. Some people will find digestive issues, but the nutrients aren't as absorbable into our bloodstream as when you soak them. So the soaking for these cashews does two things. It softens them, and it also gets rid of those enzyme inhibitors. And if you want to do that for all of your nuts, what you can do when you buy them is soak them for half a day to a day. Like almonds, you can soak for longer. Rinse them off, and if you have a dehydrator, you can use the dehydrator to get them rid of the moisture. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can put them on a baking sheet with a cloth. And if you do that, I've done it that both ways. The dehydrator is about 12 hours to get rid of the moisture. And when I soak in my area, I'm in Toronto, which is a little bit on the little moisture, like we have some humidity. It takes about 5 days of letting them just air dry before they're really back to being solid. So that's something you can think about doing. Not everybody does that. I don't think it's common knowledge, but it definitely helps with the absorption and any digestive issues. I'm going to add in some lemon juice. I've got 2 tablespoons of lemon juice here to add into my cashews. I have some nutritional yeast. So your nutritional yeast does a few things. Our cashews are going to give us amazing omega-3 fatty acids. So it's really a good fat for us. And also the nutritional yeast usually has vitamin B12 added to it. And it's going to give us a cheesy flavor. So this is where we get a cheesy flavor when we're not using dairy and dairy cheese. And I usually, when I look at a recipe, I usually double it to get the flavor that I want. I have a 1/4 cup of the cheese here. And then I'm going to add some spices. So you could use like thyme, rosemary. And so what I do, my little hack and cheat, is to use a poultry seasoning. So I've got a tablespoon of that. And you don't want to skimp because you want to make sure that you're getting some good flavor. And then I've got garlic. I don't know who doesn't like garlic. I've cut up some garlic. I've got 2 small cloves, or you could have 1 big clove. So that adds a nice flavor to your herb cheese. And what I'm going to do beforehand, I cut up the garlic, and you want to cut it about 10 to 15 minutes before you put it into the blender. So it should be the first thing that you do is cut up your garlic. And this goes for anytime you're cooking or doing recipes. then that releases the enzymes in the garlic, which are called allicin, and it releases it, and then that gives the antimicrobial properties really come out with those enzymes being released. So that's another pro tip. And so I'm going to just try putting on the lid, and we'll see how we do for, this lid is a little hard to get on. We'll see how we do. We might have to add some liquid to get it to blend. And so I've got my liquid here. So I'm just going to pop this down. All right. And then I'm going to have my tamper ready. Now this tamper will go in here, and it's designed for this particular vessel. It comes with it. And the reason why you want to use the tamper that comes with your blender is because it will make sure you're not hitting the blades. So you don't want to hit the blades. So let me put this right in here because I know I'm going to need it. And I'm just going to turn it on the slowest speed. Actually, this one is doing pretty good. Let me turn this on. And I've got someone else joining. And by the way, you will get the recipe at the end. I will make sure I send out an email to you with the recipe for today's herb cheese log. All right, so we've got all of our ingredients in our blender. We're blending it up. And it's now come to a standstill. Not much is happening. So this is what happens when you've got very little liquid in it, is it really does start to, at some point it won't blend. But I'm going to try not to add too much liquid. It's done pretty good so far. It's a nice paste, but the cashews are still pretty big. I want to make sure I get them to a nice paste. So I'm going to go again. And like I said, I'm trying not to add in any very much liquid so that I have a really dense cheese log. The one I made yesterday is very soft. Oh, a little bit. Let me go back. Add a little bit. I might add a little bit of water now. Just want to make sure it gets to be creamy. I'm just going to add a small amount of water. So this is like a tablespoon and a half here, or a teaspoon and a half. And let's try that and see how it goes. All right, put this here. Make sure it clips down on both sides. Great, here we go. Let's try it again. So this is where you have patience. Oh yeah. You guys tired yet? All right, let's see. It's getting there. It's pretty good now. And it's a pretty thick consistency. I don't want to take up too much time. You definitely can do it a little longer for sure, but that's the idea. And then I can roll it out onto so this one is thick and it will make a nice log. I'm going to show you what I made yesterday. And I'm putting it on some parchment paper here. And then I can try and roll it into a log, or you could roll it into a ball if you want. We have two of these spatulas. And then that's the other thing, is to get it out of the Vitamix. A little bit off the side. You can put it into a mold if you want. There's lots of things. You could just use it as a spread with some crackers. There's however you want to present it is good. All right. So what I would do here is then what I'm going to do is roll it into a log and put it into the fridge. So this one is it was already pretty pliable, so that's good. I can just cool it for about an hour, and then I can roll it into a log here. It should work. That I would put in my fridge. And I have what I made yesterday. Now this one is much softer. And what you can do, there's a number of ways that you can work with this. It's all over my hands now, nice and messy. You can add some almond flour. I've got some almond flour to make it a little thicker because I added quite a bit of water yesterday because I made it in my other container. Or you can just use it the way it is or make it into balls. So I'm just going to add a little bit of almond flour and see what happens. So you guys are watching me do this. So you can add a little bit of almond flour. You want to add a little bit at a time. And so then you want to get it so that it will make a little, like a little ball. And if you put it in the fridge, it'll set. So I want to I might add a little bit more. You can make little balls. Then you'll be able to make easier to make your log as well. It's like working with cookies. I don't know if you've ever made cookies and you have to continue to add a little bit of flour until it's good. Just going to add a little more. And then I can roll out my log as it may be for presentation. One of the things I want to do there is add some pistachio nuts and some cranberries to it, to the outside. Give it a nice look. So let me just wash off my hair. All right. And so let me leave this here at the front. And I'm going to I have a little food processor. I have a big one too, but I'm just going to use my little one. This is for small things. I like to use this to chop garlic, do other little things when I'm like maybe chopping 10 or 20 cloves at a time. And I'm just going to add about 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. I buy the cranberries that are, be careful of what cranberries you're buying. These ones are sweetened with apple juice. There's lots that are sweetened with a lot of sugars. And then I've got some pistachio nuts that I roasted. So I took raw pistachio nuts that are shelled and I roasted them in the oven for at 350 for about 7 minutes. And you know that they're ready when they start smelling really fragrant. That's usually when they're ready. And I always use a timer because you can go from 1 minute, they're beautiful and ready, to the next minute that they're burning already. So you have to be careful about the timing. And for me, if I'm in the kitchen and I'm not paying attention, turn my head for a minute and poof, they're not going to last. So I'm just going to chop these up in my Cuisinart here, my mini Cuisinart. All right, that should be good. And then I can add, oh, they look good. Then I put the mixture in a bowl and then I can roll my cheese into the mixture to crust it on the outside. So let me take this little ball that I made and make a crust with it. Put it in the crust. We have a little mini ball that you can make. It's crusted here. I could take my little mini log that I made, so you can make a bigger log and add the crust to the outside and move it around. This will help also to keep it a little more solid. And I would put this in the fridge again after you roll it in the crust. And then you can serve it later, but it definitely needs to go in the fridge to make it more solid. And it'll be ready to go. And then you can serve that. I don't know if you guys can see that at all. Here, let me move it back. Go. Add the crust. And there you have, you could use other things. It's hard to see. what it looks like. Let me see if I can pick it up and show you the little log. And like I said, you need to put it back in the fridge and it'll help too, because it's been out of the fridge. Definitely also that because of the oil in the nuts, like the fat in the nuts, putting it in the fridge will help solidify it. And then you might want to eat it with some crackers. So I have some crackers that I made. We're going to make these later this week on Thursday. We're actually going to make these. So you can stand by, but I made these little crackers. You just break them off and then you can eat it. So you could dip it into your log. You could have my little knife where you could just have the cashew cheese itself for as a spread. Or you could have your little bite size and take your log and you can put it on your log. And then you can eat it. So let me try it. You get the nice little sweetness coming through from the cranberries. It's so good. Honestly, you could make these just these little balls, and people could actually, if you made small little balls, you could just pop it in your mouth if you wanted. And so this is one idea that you can use to make a healthy version of an old standard that we have. And yeah, we'll make these crackers on Thursday. And I love crackers. If I'm making these, I have to be mindful because I can eat the whole batch in one day. They're so good. At least I think they're good. All right. Ladies, do you have any questions for me about this cheese, herb cheese log made with cashews? Hey, Diane.
Hi, are you going to email the recipe?
I will email you the recipe. Absolutely, for sure. Because you guys came. I know you missed the first little part with the ingredients. But it's cashews, lemon juice, nutritional yeast. I use poultry seasoning. You could use whatever herbs you want, but I use poultry seasoning for my herbs. And then garlic. And you could put a little bit of salt in as well. I forgot about the salt. I'm actually been trying to be salt free, so that's why I don't put salt in, but you could add some salt because I think people like salt in their cheese. So definitely add some salt to taste. And so I've got the recipe and I will email it to both of you for sure. And if you're staying around, we actually have a full ebook that we're going to be sending out at the end of the 5 days. I want to talk a little bit about our New Year's resolutions. I don't know, are either of you doing any New Year's resolutions? That's a good question. Yeah, so you can add salt if you want, but I don't use salt, Kimberly, so that's good. I just checking that out. Anybody doing any New Year's resolutions or thinking about that this year? I guess I decided a couple years ago that my New Year's resolutions I would make anytime during the year when I wanted to make some changes and really look at creating a life I love ongoing. That's for me. And the reason I wanted to talk about resolutions, Diana, I don't know if you wanted to say something because you're off mute.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
That's good. Okay, no worries, no worries. Hey, OJ. All right, 90% of New Year's resolutions fail by the end of January. And the reasons can be simple, but often overlooked why they fail. And so if you're thinking of making some changes or you're feeling a little stuck and you want to create the life you love, here's some of the things you should keep in mind. I always say we should be feeling great now. Where we're at today is really important. But when we're setting goals, the 3 common reasons why people's New Year's resolutions fall by the wayside by the end of January is that they set unrealistic goals. They lack support or accountability. And the third one is they're focusing on their willpower alone. And so if we look at these just very briefly, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. A lot of times we set goals that are so big, they feel overwhelming instead of just focusing on small, actionable steps. And we aim to change everything overnight. And I know I have done that before. And of course, when life gets busy, those goals fall apart. And when does life get busy? Probably on January 2nd, right? Or 3rd. And I had always this big grandiose idea. And if I didn't, I'd set the bar really high. And if I didn't meet it, I would quit right away because I failed. And I've had to change that mindset and understand that there's no thing of failing. And what I would do, I remember one time I've actually changed a lot because I used to, like I said, set the bar really high. And then if I failed on day one, it would, and I usually, for me, I did a lot of yo-yo dieting. And I would set a goal, either a New Year's resolution, or it could have been just one Monday. And by Monday night, I was already done because I wanted to do everything all at once. And over the last number of years, I've learned to be okay with who I am and where I am now and love myself. But more importantly, tackle some of the things that I want to change one at a time instead of trying to do it all at once. In terms of my weight, I started by attacking my sugar. I used to eat a lot of, I was addicted to sugar. Getting rid of sugar was number one for me. Number two, then after that, I started looking at some of the salty things like chips and things and getting rid of those. So I started taking it one at a time. And I've been much more successful that way. The other one, hey, Vicki, we're talking about if we're making either New Year's resolution or just some goals for ourselves, some of the reasons that they fail. And the first one is that we set unrealistic goals. But number two is lack of support or accountability. And a lot of times we try and do this on our own, and that can be very isolating. If we don't have a support system or a clear structure. And if you're doing it and your current support structure doesn't understand it, a lot of times, especially if you're trying to change how you're eating, I remember no matter what I did or said, my grandmother would always say, oh, no, you have to eat, you're too skinny. And I'm like, I am not skinny at all. If your support system doesn't understand, it's really hard. So it's nice to be in a community where people understand, and you might be able to have some accountability. And I remember going on a diet one time, and this is just all on my own. I didn't tell anybody. And I remember I was eating carrots, and this is on day one. And my mom made some comment about, oh, you can't just eat carrots, rah, 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 rah. And I got mad at the way that she said it to me. And so what did I do? I stopped the diet because I was mad at my mom. But if I would have engaged my mom to help support me, I probably would have had a better time. And maybe I would have lasted till Tuesday instead of Monday. And then the third one is focusing on willpower. So willpower is not a long-term strategy. As a matter of fact, willpower, it actually only lasts about 20 minutes a day. It's like a muscle and it gets tired. So instead of focusing on willpower, which I've done a lot of, willpower not to eat something, then you want to have some systems and habits that work for us automatically. And I think if we can make some sustainable changes, small sustainable changes, that will help move us in the right direction. And I remember my willpower. I actually went to this is through a professional. It was medically supervised by a nurse, and they put me on a 400 calorie a day program, and I lost the weight I wanted to lose, and I was at my lowest weight ever. And I stayed that way for about a year. And I have to say, then all of the sudden, I started that quote unquote willpower started to fade. So a year is a pretty good time for the willpower, but I didn't have sustainable habits. And when I started to fade that willpower and I started to eat the things that I shouldn't have been eating for my own health, all of a sudden I couldn't stop. I literally could not stop eating, even though I knew it was not good for me. And I ended up gaining all of the weight and probably an extra 30 pounds in a matter of 6 months. So I was spent a year and a bit on this real low calorie. And then all of a sudden, when I lost, when I couldn't sustain it, I just like literally, I remember being at friends' house. We were staying at some friends and I literally ate all of their bread. I was mortified and I felt so bad. They're probably thinking, what happened to all our bread that we bought? So willpower, you cannot live on willpower alone. So over the course of the week, as we go through some of these amazing treats that we're going to do, we're also going to look at how we can combine our mindset, some support, and a clear plan so that we have success if we want to make some changes, whether it's for the new year to set yourself up for 2025 or at any time when you decide. So we'll be diving into that as well as the recipes. And the good news is that we're going to have some more recipes tomorrow. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about any of their ideas of anything that they've had, even just put it in the chat about, or reflect on where you want to go, or if you remember times when you've tried to change and things just backslid. So that's a good thing to think about. And when we get to tomorrow, we are going to do a chocolate. So one of my absolute favorites when I was a kid was turtles. We would always get a little box of turtles. Hey, Kimberly, I know, been there, done that. But we'd get a big box of turtles as a gift, probably from my grandmother or someone. And I literally would eat the whole box. And I probably ate it on Christmas Day. I didn't even savor it. I loved turtles and caramel and all that stuff. So we are going to do turtles 2 ways tomorrow. One is super, super simple and will take you about 15 minutes. And the other one, it'll take you about 20 minutes to do. The one, you don't need anything other than to roast your nuts, and we'll use pecans. And the other one, we'll use our high-speed blender again. So again, I want to just remind you that I will send the recipe out to you today for today's herb cashew cheese log. And we will then also, as you attend every day, we're doing it again tomorrow at noon with our chocolate and our turtles. All healthy. So if I ate the whole box, it would be a lot better than the turtles that you buy in the store. But now I would never eat the whole box because I was able to break my sugar addiction. So that's even better. Yeah, so we can have those that you can have for your family and friends or for yourself as a treat. Every day you'll get the recipe if you attend the session. If you are a VIP, you'll automatically get the recipes. And at the end of the week, there will be an ebook that will be available on our VIP. And if you are interested in also a couple other treats that we'll have by the end of the week for you. So if there are no questions, then I will say goodbye.